in straight into the like dialogue stage. Now, in the design stage, you want to have set up your platform steering committee. So this circle here on the left is like what we would describe as pre-dialogue stage. But basically the rest of this process slide is dialogue stage. So this is like the high level overview so that you can like see the chunks as we go through. So basically what happens is you have a launch event, you set up technical working groups, and before you have your launch event, you'll see over here on the top left, you've got some kind of draft root cause analysis report, right? And what we mean by this is a report done by a consultant that says, we think that these are the key causes of the problems in the sector. The problems of sustainability and lack of development or lack of economic fairness in the sector come from these causes. And it's done by a consultant so that it's not like owned by UNDP, it's independent, kind of here's a draft report. And on the basis of that report, you can be like, okay, what kind of technical working groups do we want to set up? Like, how would we categorize the problems? So maybe we could ask Cynthia, could you just quickly describe, like in Indonesia, you have which technical working groups on palm oil? Just so people get a sense. Are you there, Cynthia?
Hear me?
Oh, now we hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, so noisy because I have a lot of dogs in here.
That's okay.
Okay, so in Indonesia, we have 4 technical working groups that already defined by the, we have already identified since we identified the root causes analysis. So it's really, for working group is one is working on like the smallholders capacity building, and the second working group is working on the environment management things. The third working group is working on the good governance on conflict mediation in social and labor issue, and the fourth working group is working on the certification for the smallholders and access to market. That's how we set up the technical working groups, and it consists of the multi-stakeholders and related interministerial that related with the issue.
Yeah, great, thank you. So that's exactly like an example of like how you would categorize problems into 4 technical working groups. You could have less than 4, you could have more than 4, but you know, it's just about time and management of all those different technical working groups. And your subject matter could be different, right? You could have one on environmental impacts, one on like development, one on markets, and one on monitoring if you wanted, or yeah. So there's all different ways that you can construct it, but you want to understand how to set up your technical working groups based on the root cause analysis report, right? And in some countries, you know, you may already know, someone else may have done that work on what the problems are. So you don't have to repeat it if it's already been done, especially if they're one of your partners in the program. And then the idea is that you have plenary meetings that are multi-stakeholder and technical working group meetings that are multi-stakeholder, and they go through a process of, okay, do we agree with the independent report about the root causes? Like, is the consultant's report correct? Because normally when you bring multiple stakeholders into a room who have lots of different experience across the value chain, you get a lot more intelligence, right, in the room, and they all know a lot of things. So they'll all be like, yeah, that problem is kind of right, but they've missed this out, and there's these other problems. Or, yeah, that's true in this region, but not in this region, right? So you start to get a lot more intelligence about what the real causes of the problems are. And then there's a moment in time where you say, okay, now we have a final root cause analysis report, right? Now we really know what are the problems that we want to address. And at that moment, it's important to have a plenary meeting where you bring like a wider group of stakeholders and all the members of the different technical working groups together and say, okay, we agree that these are the problems that we have to address. Now, why do you think it's important to like have that milestone, that moment in time where everybody says, yeah, we subscribe and support and agree with the fact that these are the problems? Why might that be important? I'm waiting for a volunteer, and if no one...
Hi. I think that it's the most important to have the engagement of all the stakeholders because the plenaries and the technical working groups are volunteer, so they have to agree on the problem and feel that it's the reality of their lives, of their day and day. So in that case, they will be focusing on trying to resolve or to plan to get a final action plan in order to their problems, what they think, what they are actually living every day. So
Yeah.
I think an agreement is most important.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, it's honoring the reality of the stakeholders that are doing the voluntary work. It's a really, yeah, exactly. And also it's a really important moment to say, it's historical that we agreed that these are the problems. And so we know what we're trying to fix. Like, when we develop the National Action Plan, we are trying to find solutions to these problems. Otherwise, what can happen is the discussion can keep going round in circles. Like, no, but that's not the solution because that's not the problem. I thought this was, like, you can just go round and round in circles afterwards. So it's also like to have it written down, to have it agreed, to say, okay, now this is what we're working on. It helps with the process as well. So thank you, Pablo, for that. And of course, so then the outcome of that is that the technical working groups then take those problems and they do start to develop the solutions, and that collects together as what we call a national action plan. It may be you may call it a strategy for sustainability, like in Liberia, it's the palm oil strategy. You may call it a sustainable fisheries action plan. You may call it whatever you want. We just use this general term for it. And you want to make sure that, you know, as you draft it, it's consulted with different stakeholders and in plenary meetings before you get to a final version that can be signed off. Ideally by your steering committee, but then ultimately it needs to be like officialized by the government, right? And I'm going to get into more of that detail in a minute. Just to bring your attention to the bottom of the slide, this section at the bottom here, you know, basically you're having these kind of formal meetings, but you're also generally having continuous stakeholder engagement, whether that's formal through meetings or informal through breakfasts and dinners and generally just like one-on-ones in the office, etc. And that we really want to pay attention to, so there's a couple of circles here, like how do you, maybe you want a group of advisors, you could set up like an advisory group if you want, of like high-level people or academics, or if that was helpful. So far we haven't had that needed necessarily in a platform, but it's an option. And then we have basically provincial platforms, which in like, for example, in Paraguay, they use like a lot of provincial platform work that then links up to national platforms. And in Indonesia, we did it the other way around. We had the national platform and then the provincial platforms afterwards. So that one of the challenges, like, okay, how do you connect the work and which one comes first, right? And then really important here is producer meetings. And this is like, if you're working with small scale farmers or small scale fisheries or artisanal fisheries, expecting them to always come to your meetings is not necessarily the right approach. You need to consider going out to them, like, so going out to the smallholder farmers and asking them what they think and having budget to do that, right? Like, that's an important thing to make sure that if those people with less access exist in your stakeholder mapping, that you have a special way to engage with them. Okay, we're gonna just look at, these are all the more specific like outputs that we have in the dialogue stage. And like we did in the last workshop, what we're gonna do is just go through each one, and I'm just going to invite people to say, like, why might this be an important output? Like, why do we have it here? Why is it on the slide? Why is it considered essential? So either you can volunteer, or I will ask someone just to speak about it. And I'll take the first one. So the first one is, here you can see, is a producer engagement report. Now, we've put that there specifically because in most sectors, you do have smallholder farmers. You probably have large plantation owners too, or big companies that own plantations, or you have like large fishing companies, but also artisanal fisheries, right? Or artisanal fishermen. So you want to make sure that you've made a plan and you've engaged with those people who have, or the minorities, or have less access to information and knowledge, and also to the capital city or wherever you're holding your meetings, right? And you want to have a report about that because you want to be able to represent their opinions in the stakeholder dialogue. So you'd want to be able to share that with all your stakeholders. This is what came out of engaging actively and proactively engaging with producers, right? Or I'm going to use the word producers, but let's say that it includes fishermen, because I know they're not really producers, right? So it's really important to have it because it proves you've done it, and it also allows all your other stakeholders to understand what they say, right? If you don't have a report, how are you going to make sure all your other stakeholders have read and understood what they have to say at a deeper level? So then the next one is like the identification of technical working group participants. Why is that important? Anybody want to talk about that? It doesn't have to be right. It can just be like what you might think, your ideas around it.
I can give it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, great. Go, Yancy. Yeah.
Before we go to the identification of technical working group participant, I just want to clarify on the producer engagement report. So when we go to the producer, is it about like finding how to engage them better in the platform, or more about issue related to the root cause analysis?
Both. It could be both. I think both is a good idea, right? So, and like, okay, what are the problems? What do they think the solutions are? And how might they want to continue to engage? Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks. Alex, were you willing to go on why identifying technical? Yeah, great.
To give it a try. So basically, identifying the right participants with the right technical expertise. If it's an environmental impact technical working group, you have to ensure that people who have expertise in this sector are the participants, so they can give like a reliable input, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And that as long as like you need to balance that, like you've got the right expertise, along with you've got the right balance of stakeholders, because you want to have not only like government in there, you need civil society and companies and development partners in those groups too. And who might be good chairs or leaders, right? You need like a leader of each technical working group to kind of keep the group going and keep them together and be like, shut up everyone, get to work. Sometimes you need that, right? So yeah, so I think being able to be like, okay, who are the key stakeholders that we need to put in the different working groups is a really important moment. Great, thanks, Alex. So draft root cause analysis report, I think I talked about that before, so I'm just going to skip down just for the sake of time as well. Okay, so the next one is platform structure is agreed. So whether it's a national or regional, provincial level, like what's the structure? Why might that be important to do?
Can I try?
Yeah, great. Go, Pascal. Mm-hmm.
I think from a governance point of view, it's very important to make it clear how things are structured. So if there is a secretariat or a steering committee, I know in Liberia they're calling it secretariat at the moment, but an organ that is making decision on behalf of the plenary.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's important to agree on that and how it is functioning, how to reach consensus or how to vote if there is no agreement on consensus and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like the governance, right? How the governance is going to work. And here also specifically, are we running regional platforms and national platforms at the same time, or do we need to, or is national enough? Like in Liberia or in Costa Rica, you know, it's enough to do national. You know, it's not like a massive country, like geographically, right? Whereas in Indonesia or Paraguay, like you need to have regional and provincial level stuff because it's a massive country, right, geographically. So if you're going to have that, what does that mean? Where do you start? How do the two interrelate? What's the process? How's the process going to take into account what happens at the different levels, and that information like is not conflicted, you know, like it meets up and matches with each other, so that your national platform is relevant for national level actions and your provincial or regional platforms match up with provincial or regional actions, and that they don't contradict each other, right? So it doesn't mean you have to have it, but it means you should know, like early on, are you doing that or not? Like, what are you doing exactly? Thanks, Pascal. So then the next one is a multi-stakeholder launch event, kind of like a plenary meeting. Why is that important?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Before you go on, I was just wondering, you know, how can or how do the platforms, specifically on commodities, relate at all to other platforms that exist in the same space and even treating with very similar things?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so two things on that, Ronald. The first one is before you, so in the design stage, you do like a scoping study about whether or not a platform is even relevant in a country, right? If a platform already exists in a country that is functioning perfectly well, then why would you do another one? You don't do another one, right? So you do a different kind of project. So that's the first thing, is that when you start a project, you look to see if you don't want to replicate something that already exists, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there may be other platforms that exist, but they are doing something slightly different, or they're not doing it so well, or maybe they don't really have very much government leadership or something like that. And so then the question is, at the beginning, when you do your stakeholder analysis and you start to talk to people, when you're working with people and having meetings with people, is to say, okay, how can we complement each other? How can we create added value? Like, how does this platform create added value? What is the thing that it can bring that other platforms will find valuable, right? So you've got to find what those things are, and then design the platform around that. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks. It's a real case, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. All right, so just to come back to the multi-stakeholder launch event, why might that be an important thing to do? I'm gonna. What about you, Gradia? What do you think?
Okay. I honestly feel that this sets the pace for the establishment of the platform, of course, and this helps to bring together all of the stakeholders at once. It's the beginning of the engagement phase where we have all of the stakeholders together. This is the introduction. This is the beginning of the platform. This is where we start networking and trying to find our different niches and see how we can collaborate. So I think this is very important. Yeah.
Totally, yeah, bang on. And also to announce, like, to the media, right? Like, we're doing this. This is what we're up to, guys, right? So we want and also internationally, like, we want the international markets and international donors and everyone to know this is happening. And so keep an eye on it, right? Like, watch us. Yeah, great. And then the next one is, like, the website goes live. So Jordan, what do you think? Why might it be important to get a website up and running?
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, it's very important for the establishment or development of websites because for one, for publicity's sake, for stakeholders to have more information, to have access to information about the platform itself, and learn more about the benefits and the socio-economic stuff, and how it is related to the nature of the what's done in the country.
Yeah, exactly. All those things. It's totally all those things. And also, if somebody maybe wants to participate and they weren't originally invited, they can come and say, oh, hello, I want to be part of this, right? They have a place to find you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, great. All those things. Thank you very much. Yeah, Yancy.
Yeah, because we are already speaking about media and also about building awareness of public to the platform. So, is there any like preference for the kind of branding, whether we're saying it multi-stakeholder platform or this kind of community, or we prefer like national platform, things like that?
I think what we found is that different countries have different politics and different languages, and so we're flexible about it. I think the key thing is that it has to be multi-stakeholder, and it has to be national and provincial if necessary, but what you actually decide to call it is whatever you think will resonate with your stakeholders the most, you know? Like, I think Foxby is called a multi-stakeholder forum. Right? They describe it as a multi-stakeholder forum for et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can describe it whatever you think will work best with your stakeholders. So the next one is set up technical working groups, including legal drafters. So we mean by that, like, including people in the working groups who know how to draft legal language that a government would actually approve, like, so that it becomes legal. Who wants to talk about that? Jorge, do you want to have a go at that? What do you think? Maybe you're on mute, Jorge?
Sorry, you can hear me?
Yes.
My internet connection is not very good. I don't hear the last part.
Oh yeah, so why would it be important, do you think, to set up technical working groups and to include people who know how to draft legal language inside of them?
Yes, and the experience for Paraguay, for what we see is the technical group working groups is very important to see what happened in the territory. That's, you can realize that many things, you can see something from a different part of the country, but the technical working group of the stakeholder, they can tell you what is really happening in the territory, and including the legal drafter. I think when we are trying to put another way or production of commodities and everything, and we have to remember that what kind of legal regulation we have in the country. in every country that who is working in this type of platform. I think is important that have people who go with us, seeing what the legal regulation is essential to everybody who work in the production most of anything.
Yeah, it's really important that they know like what's the legal legislation now, but also if we wanted to propose new legislation or new policies or new commitments to the government, how do they need to be written? Like, how do they need to be written so the government can legalize the national action plan in the end? So yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yes, just to add, sometimes we have legal regulations, or we work in legal regulations, but we have to put that in the political language.
Totally.
And I think that this is very important. In all the countries happen the same thing. We understand what happened and how to find the solution, but if we cannot be sure to compromise the political stakeholders, the politicals, it's complicated to find a real action plan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, especially one that's going to be like approved by the government, right?
Yes. Yes.
Liz, I have a question about the technical working group, the participants of the technical working groups.
Yeah.
As I said, is the steering committee who decides which who goes to each technical working groups is one, and secondly, during the first plenary and the launching, that the same stakeholders can decide in which working group to participate?
That's a good question. So it's kind of like a balance, Pablo. What would normally happen is that the platform team or the platform manager would propose what the technical working group composition should be. And you would want the steering committee's review and support of it. But they don't really have to officially approve. You don't want them to say, we disagree, right? But it's more like you do the homework and you say, we think these two people should be in the technical working groups. And then the steering committee might say, yeah, that's great. Or can we make this person the chair, or they have some input on it, right? And then when you have the multi-stakeholder launch event, you would want to be starting to talk to people about, will you be willing to join these technical working groups, or invited them before you have the launch event. And then you may have people at the launch event who come and say to you, I really want to be in this working group. And those are your gold people. If the people come to you and say, I really want to be in it, you take the energy and you say, great, you're in it, right? Unless you know that there are a stakeholder that wants to block the process, okay? Because not all stakeholders are friendly, right? So then that's where you use your steering committee. Like if you had a really great person, you're like, oh, they'd be awesome. You can say, yeah, awesome, you're in. If it was someone that you're like, oh, they're going to be a real blockage in the process, you could say, let me think about it, because the steering committee has to approve the technical working groups, right? So you need to know your stakeholders well enough to balance that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, and that just leads on to that final point of launching, is that actually, after your multi-stakeholder launch event, what I imagine often happens is that people get excited and then they're like, oh, we should totally invite these other people. Why weren't they here at the event? Because maybe you missed some people in your stakeholder analysis, right? And then you're like, okay, great, give me their information. And so by the end of this process of launching the website, going live, people knowing that you exist, you expect to get some feedback about people who want to participate, like other people coming to you. And that's when you end up with your, what we call here, the final list of plenary invitees. So then you have your database of stakeholders. It's not fixed, but you know that they're always going to be invited to a plenary meeting. And it may grow beyond that, but this is like, okay, now we have the database of stakeholders, right? That are going to always be invited to a plenary discussion. So that's like a moment for that.
I'm sorry. I had a follow-up question, kind of to Pablo's question about participants.
Okay.
And relating it back to the legal drafters.
Mm-hmm.
What level of participation do you have from government representatives, in which groups, and what type of government officials do you try to engage in the process? Thinking about their influence in policy and kind of the final objective of the platform.
Right. So you would ideally, in the technical working groups, you want to have a technical, the technical specialists who actually have the time and the knowledge, right, in the working groups from the government. But you also want like either like a director, it depends how the government's structured, but like a director of a particular department, or if you could have a vice minister, that would be great, who are kind of officially members. They might not turn up to all the meetings, right? But you know that you're going to be sending them the minutes and the reports, and you know that the technical people in the working group from the same department can go and say to them, this is what happened, I'm updating you on the process. The other option is that you make someone more senior, like more of a decision maker in a government department, a chair of one of the technical working groups, if it's appropriate. You don't want to give them too much power because it's meant to be like a multi-stakeholder dialogue. But you could make them a chair if that that encourages them more to participate. So it's a little bit of a balancing game, but you want both levels, like technical knowledge and also some hierarchical decision makers from the government inside these groups.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to run through the next ones. And I really wanted to give you some time to have we're going to do breakout rooms. So I'm going to make sure that we get to that point. So action plan formulation. Okay, so you have you basically have technical working group meetings. We say that they should meet at least 4 times. In many cases, they meet many more times than that, right, Cynthia? I don't know how many times in Indonesia your technical working groups have met, but it's way more than 4, right? Do you know how many times they've met? I think it's at least 10 or something like that.
Yeah, it's more than 4.
Yeah, exactly. So 4 is a real minimum, but normally it's more than that. And then, of course, you have steering committee meetings in between. So you less regularly than the technical working group meetings, but you want to keep your steering committee up to speed on where the process is at and where the thinking is at. And as I mentioned before, then you end up with this final root cause analysis report once the technical working groups have got stuck into, are these really the problems? And I explained earlier why that was important, to kind of say we agree that these are the problems and that all the stakeholders have felt like, oh, my problems are honored and recognized in this report. So then why do we have plenary meetings? Like, what's the idea of having plenary meetings? Gala, what do you think? You're on mute, I think.
Okay, and I think a plenary meeting, and are you referring to the plenary meetings, right?
Yeah, why do we have them? Why do we have plenary meetings?
I think the plenary meeting is where you want to keep everyone informed about the progress made at the technical working group meetings, where and information concerning the different stages of work done in the technical working group meeting. So at the plenary meetings is where you bring all the issues, all the progress made so far on the various groups and how far they have come. So it's a kind of decision making meeting at the level.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all those things. It's like building consensus and keeping like the technical working group information and thinking aligned with other stakeholders. So it's exactly that. Great, thanks, Gala. So eventually then, you know, through this process with the technical working group meetings and plenary meetings and all the platform team, like writing up the notes and the minutes and recording all the information, you have, you end up with a draft action plan, right? And the draft action plan, I'll go through some of the guidance that we have on the online Google Drive in a minute, but we have a template that you could adapt and use, but it's really important that it has like who's responsible for doing the action and what's the baseline, like what already exists. And so where are we trying, what's the action trying to move? What are we trying to change with the action? And the reason that you do a draft is because you want to be able to discuss the draft. So you want to give the draft like to a plenary meeting for discussion, or you might want to send it to some government, high-level government people. The steering committee needs to see it. Like in Indonesia, we did online public consultation. We had special sessions with international market groups around here's a draft action plan, what do you think, right? So that's why you need a draft, because it's a really important moment of consultation for the draft. And then with that draft, you look at what we call a national action plan investment framework. And so that's basically like, who's going to pay? Where's all the money going to come from to implement this action plan, right? And this can take a long time, this piece of work. It's, you know, you may already know through all the conversations in the working groups and the plenary meetings, who's got budget to do certain projects or who does that kind of work already. So like, I'm just gonna take a random example. Say, you know that Oxfam does work on gender in palm oil in Liberia. I don't know if they do, but I'm making it up, right? You could say, okay, on this action line around, you know, bringing women up into the economic responsibilities of palm oil and them having more as equal say on the economics of it. Oxfam's going to work in this region and they've got this project with this budget, right? So that's the kind of thing that you might have. Or you could have, let's say in Indonesia, you're gonna have like a big palm oil company like Golden Agri Resources, who say, in this region, we are going to have a project and we're training, you know, 500,000 farmers on this standard on ISPO, and our investment is this for that. So it's like different people will be doing different, implementing different lines in the action plan, and then it's like they're going to have a project with a certain amount of budget associated to that. And you want to have an idea of what all of that is before you finalize your action plan. And then the next point is that you verify the mandates of the government departments per action. So in order to make sure that the government can use their budget to implement actions, which may be policy reforms or monitoring and enforcement or whatever it is, or training too, you need to make sure that if there's an action line which you're like, okay, we expect the Ministry of Economy or the Ministry of Environment or the Forest Department or the Environmental Protection Agency to do these things, we need to make sure it's within their remit. So that also takes quite a long time. You need to go around checking with all the different departments. Here's a draft action plan. Here are your actions. Is the wording correct? And is it your responsibility? So that when the time comes to legalize it, they can do it and they have budget, like government budget to do it. I'm moving through for the sake of time. So then the next one is making the National Action Plan official. So agree on the instrument to make the action plan official. Anyone want to say why that's important? Yancy, what do you got? What do you think, like, we mean here, like, what kind of legal instrument or governmental instrument might you use to make the action plan or strategy official?
So, for example, in the case of Indonesia, maybe you need a kind of ministerial regulation, or if the action plan will need several action from the other ministry, then maybe you need like bit higher level regulation. Yeah, it could be. It really depends on the scope of the action plan.
Yeah, exactly. And so in different countries, you'll have different things. And so it's important to know like what you're aiming for, right? Like, where are we going? Are we aiming for a ministerial legal document? Like in Costa Rica, they had a presidential decree. Are we aiming for an MOU? What are we aiming for? Does it need to go through parliament? What's the process, right? So that you know what you've got to write, how you've got to write it, and what kind of political moves you have to make to get it official. So that's great. Thanks, Yancy. Then we have a setting up of a drafting committee, which is like the people who take all the consultations that you've had from the draft. They've done all the information about investments, about what the governments need, and they start to actually craft the correct language as well. And then you have a legal review of that national action plan as well to make sure that it fits with the political machine, if you want, that's going to approve it. And then eventually you have an official action plan, which is endorsed by the government. And here we've put in like a long-term strategy. So it's very easy in this process to get you get really down into the details, right? Which is really important. But you don't want to forget that at some point you agreed a vision with all your stakeholders. There was a vision that you had at the beginning. And so you want to keep that vision in the action plan. Like all these actions are coordinated work that we're doing together towards a vision, right? So don't forget the long-term vision strategy in the plan too. So I ran through that quite a lot. And what I want to do now is just give you a little chance to chat to each other. So we're going to give you 6 minutes, 3 minutes each. I know it says 5 on the screen, but I'm reducing it so that we can finish on time. And you're going to be invited in a minute to a breakout room, okay? So you'll see something will pop up on your video screen and it's going to say, would you like to join breakout room 1, 2, 3, or 4? This is really cool technology, so I also want you to all to see it. And then you accept, yes, I want to go into the breakout room. And you will be matched up with a partner. And we can't hear what you're saying, so you have a private conversation and it's not recorded either. And the question that we want you to answer with your partner is, how can you make multi-stakeholder dialogue meaningful and effective in your work? And you're going to have 3 minutes each, and we'll send you a little note saying 3 minutes is up, switch to the other person. So you'll see a pop-up note from us. And then when 6 minutes is up, we'll give you a 1-minute warning to come back and join everybody else. Okay, does that everybody? Hi, Gala, welcome back.
Thank you.
So we're just waiting for everyone to come back from their conversations.
We're all back.
Okay. It's weird, I can't see everyone. Okay. All right, welcome back, everyone. That's great. Anyone willing to share something that came up, something that was insightful for you in the conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. I heard someone say something, but I don't know who it was.
Yeah, me, Liz. Jordan.
Yeah. Go for it, Jordan.
Yeah. With the experience of trying with the experience of doing Red Plus in the country in PNC, we basically, first of all, we try to bring all stakeholders together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the focus is on increasing understanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the understanding and relations among its stakeholders through the use of communication that enables participants to move forward with implementing of plans. Basically, the stakeholders need to come to an understanding to know what the role, what specific roles they play within those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the things that I really understand, and it gives me light on that.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing. All right, so I'm going to move us on to slowly wrap up. We've got 5 minutes left. I'm just going to highlight for you what we've and the methodology said, if you want to have collaborative, meaningful, multi-stakeholder dialogue, we've identified these principles. One is mutual respect, so that you find a way to make sure that everybody respects each other in a mutual way, and they don't degrade someone else's comment or undermine them because they're different. That takes quite a lot of work to make that a reality. And then that it's action and results orientated. We're not just here to chat, right? We're here to create change. Then that we make honest commitments. And so often here, it's really hard for most people to say no. For most of us, it's easier to say yes than it is to say no. But we want, if we're going to make a commitment, we want to be really honest about it. So if we say yes, we really want to make sure that people feel that they can say yes and that they can say no in case they're actually, no, I really just can't do that. It's better that we know that than that they say yes and then 2 years down the line, it's oh no, I don't have $2 million to invest in training farmers or $2 million left in monitoring fish stocks, right? That just doesn't happen. So we want people to feel safe to say no. And that if there's a lot of space for sharing learning, and so people are encouraged to share mistakes that they made as well as successes that they had, and that there's transparency and that people feel like it's okay to share what's true and real rather than hiding things because they're embarrassed or hiding things because they think it's a competitive edge. So how do you kind of minimize the sense of competition in the dialogue as well? I just want to quickly show you that this is the Google Drive that we have online, and these are the folders. And I'll send you the link to this drive after the call. But I just want to highlight some key pieces of guidance that exist on the drive that relate to some of the things we talked about today. So one is that we have a terms of reference and an outline of the process of doing a root cause analysis. So when you contract the consultant, there's a terms of reference that you can adapt and use in terms of what you're asking someone to do when they do the root cause analysis report. We have designed specifically with the Red Plus team, gender expert in Geneva, what does it look like to do gender mainstreaming in platforms? And we have a little checklist that goes alongside that. So we have quite a lot of tools and recommendations around that in platform dialogue. Then we have tools around running a plenary meeting. So we have template facilitation notes. We have a checklist, how do you prepare a plenary meeting? We also have a lot of examples of websites. I'm going to quickly flick through those at the end of this call. We have templates for national action plans that you can then adapt. We have examples of national action plans from Costa Rica, Indonesia, and Dominican Republic. We have guidance around securing financing for the implementation of a national action plan. And we also have a guidance piece around like the 10-step process to make a national action plan official, as well as an example decree from Costa Rica in English and Spanish of how they did it with the Pineapple Action Plan. So there's more, as you can see in the drive, there's many folders, but I wanted to highlight these as kind of significantly relevant for the subjects that we just talked through. And here are some examples of websites. So this is the Costa Rica platform for sustainable fisheries, large pelagics. I'll send you these links in an email afterwards so you can check them out in different languages and stuff. This is the Indonesia palm oil platform, Foxbee is their website. This is the one for pineapple in Costa Rica. And this is not the one that Jorge works on, which is the Chaco region, which is a new platform, but this is the other platform on soy and beef in another region that's been running for quite a while and is still going. So this is the one in Paraguay on beef and soy. I wanted to have time for more questions and comments, but I feel like because we took quite a lot of questions going through each of the outputs, that we've run out of time for that. But I'm really open to hearing any questions or comments or ideas you have by email afterwards. And I'm facilitating this stream. So you signed up for the stream and I'm therefore available as a moderator to support you. So please do feel free to email me or afterwards if you have other questions that we didn't have time to answer right now. Or if you have comments or ideas, I'd welcome them too, not just questions. And yeah, just in terms of next steps, we, as I said, you'll get a follow-up email. You can be in touch with any questions you have. Please feel free to connect with each other. You're all on the email with your email addresses. So if you had a good conversation with your partner and you'd like to carry on, please feel free to reach out to each other as well. And as I said, I'll send you a follow-up email with links to the guidance and to the websites. And just to flag that the next workshop in this series is on Wednesday, the 10th of October. And as per usual, you'll hear from Matthias and from me to put that in your diaries. And we'll be talking about the implementation stage of national action plans and platforms in that next workshop. I would like to do a quick round of one word, how are you? Before we go. I know it's time, so if you have to drop off, that's fine. Please drop off, and if you can stay, let's just do a one word, how are you, as we complete. And I will start and say that I feel satisfied, and I'm going to pass it to Alexandra.
I feel that I've learned a lot, and yeah, thank you. I'm glad for that.
Great.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass it to Matthias.
Yeah, I also feel very satisfied. This was the first time that we tried the breakout rooms and it went really well, so I'm really, really happy. I was kind of afraid, to be honest, but it went well. Yeah, I'll pass it to Pablo.
I found this meeting really interesting. And I learned a lot, and I realized that I have a lot of work to do. So yeah, I will go through Google Drive documents to find a guide how to address all the topics. Yeah, thank you. I'll pass it to Pascal.
So I feel refreshed in the sense that I refreshed in my mind the key principles of an efficient multi-stakeholder dialogue. So that was good. Remembering some of these words that you put on the slide. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Can you pass it, Pascal?
Yeah, I will pass it to Jordan.
Yeah, thank you, Pascal. Yeah, I feel refreshed, and also feeling quite a lot to do after this. And yeah, thanks for learning a lot in all of you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jordan. You want to pass it?
Yeah, I'll pass it to Ronald.
Yes,
Pass it.
thanks so much. Yeah, I think I feel better. I was sort of drained coming into the meeting, but I feel better. It was good hearing about other experiences, and you know, it gives me a little more energy to continue. So yeah, cheers. Thanks.
Great. Can you pass
Let's
it?
see. Well, is on is Gabriela is still there, is it?
Uh-huh. Oh, we can't hear you again, Gabby.
Okay, there.
Yeah.
I have muted. After, I feel a little bit more knowledgeable and I think also more respectful after my brief conversation with Ronald of kind of all of the complexities that the platforms have to face on the ground. Yeah.
Thanks. You want to pass it?
I'll pass it on to, oh, wait, no. Nikita?
So yeah, Nikita joined us, but I don't know if he can talk. We've been trying to get him to talk, but I'm not sure the microphone works yet. So Nikita, can you hear us?
You can also chat. You can send a message to me.
Yeah, we've been doing that. But anyway, so can you pass to someone else for now?
Cynthia?
Thank you, Gabriel. I feel refreshed and happy to learn from other sharing, especially we have a lot of sharing with Jordan. And thank you, Liz, for this fruitful workshop.
Welcome. You want to pass it, Cynthia?
I pass it to Pablo.
I think that I spoke already.
Yeah, Pablo already went, so choose someone else.
Sorry.
Okay. Gradia or Yancy or Jorge.
Yancy?
Yancy? Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. So yeah, I'm really glad of joining today's session. I have better picture now about the platform, and also a bit amazed with the breakout room for the the Zoom application. Thanks.
Great. Can you pass it?
Okay. To Gradia. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jensen. For me, I feel more enlightened, and it was very interesting talking to colleagues from other countries and hearing their perspectives, because there will always be something that relates to what you are doing back in your country. So it was very interesting. I'm very happy about this session. I don't know if Jorge has spoken.
No, he hasn't. So good spot.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you all. I'm feeling very excited about all the conversation, and very good about have this breaking room with the other colleague of the other countries. I think it's very interesting exercise to do, and I hope the next time I will be attending the meeting. So I thank you all, and I don't know if is someone else to speak.
No, that's it. Thank you, Jorge. Just gonna.
Okay. I pass the microphone to you, Liz.
Thank you. All right, so we'll follow up with Nikita afterwards to see, what happened and if we can talk to him or not, but it seems for now not. Thank you all. Thank you for staying for a little bit longer to be able to do this quick round of debrief. It's really helpful to hear how it was for you. And good night, sleep well for those of you on the other side of the world, and if it's in the morning, then have a good day. And we'll see you on the next webinar if we don't exchange before. Ciao, everyone. Adios.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.